now residing in Connecticut, Vinny Milani. Vinny, hello. How are you? Welcome to the North, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having me again, man. I appreciate the welcome every time you invite me here. It's always nice, but I'm getting used to this Connecticut living. Just moved up here at the beginning of the month, and it's I'm feel like I'm getting used to it. But once those winter months come, that's when like I can handle these months. This is fine, but obviously when November, December, and January come along, and February, I'll be a different person.
Absolutely. I'm glad, that you're enjoying, the new life up here. I think, a lot of good opportunity up here in the New York, Connecticut area in general. I know you're a big Rangers fan, so I'm sure that excites you as well.
Not far away from Hartford, so I can go see the Wolfpack on a cheap game, and then I can drive take the train into the city to see the Rangers play every now and then when I can afford it. So I'll definitely be making those trips.
That's right. Now, obviously, though, your heart's with Duval.
Yep.
Jacksonville Jaguars. I know I also have family in Northern Florida right now, so hopefully everyone's doing all right with the hurricane, happening down there currently. Thoughts and prayers go out to everybody. But Vinny, I want to ask you, how impressed are you with your Jacksonville Jaguars 3 weeks into the season? Because it seems like there's a different vibe around this football team this year.
Yeah. To say I am excited would be an understatement. I've been trying to keep my cool on my show every time we talk about the Jags. I'm supposed to be that neutral mind. I'm supposed to be just the host. I'm supposed to not really give my opinion too much and keep myself level-headed, but it's hard to not get excited about this Jaguars team. I mean, this seems like you nailed it right there. It seems like a different team, and it is a different team. It's a different culture now with Doug Pederson at the helm. It's been very exciting to watch, and there's not a lot of drama or off-field stuff going on. There's not a lot of negativity surrounding this Jaguars team, especially through the first 3 weeks of football, which is unusual, or it hasn't been this way since that great season of 2017 where we almost made it to the Super Bowl. And the vibes are great, and what we're seeing on the field is even better. I mean, that last game last week against the Chargers was fun. It's been a while since a Jaguars fan has been able to celebrate a game like that. Since 2000 was actually the last time the Jaguars were able to blow out teams back to back. So it's been fun. And just to say I'm impressed would be an understatement, and excited would be an understatement.
I love your analysis there too, and I do think the team is headed in the right direction. It's very exciting. I think also you have a huge opportunity to take advantage of a weak division this year. I want to start with the elephant in the room in Trevor Lawrence, right? Break this player down. What have you seen from him this year compared to him as a rookie? Like, what type of improvements have you seen in his game? Is he better with his progressions now? Is the line better, or what is it?
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of all of the above to answer your question and to dive into it. I mean, the first week when we played Washington, it almost seemed like the same old Jaguars, where they didn't get blown out by any means or destroyed by the Washington Commanders in week one, but Trevor Lawrence was sacked a few times, and you would see plays where like, okay, this offensive line still has a few pieces to get together, and they're starting a rookie center and Luke Fortner, who came out of Kentucky to replace Brandon Linder, who they drafted, I believe in the third round. They brought him in, and they still have obviously Jawan Taylor and Cam Robinson as the anchors on the left and right side of the tackle position. Brought in Brandon Scherff. This offensive line was improved in the offseason, but after that Commanders game, it seemed like, okay, we might take a little time to see it. But when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, he's getting the protection. You saw it in the last game against the Chargers, going up against, although Joey Bosa was out, they still had Khalil Mack. And I remember this key moment during the broadcast where they were talking about how Joey Bosa was out and Khalil Mack was there, and they haven't said Khalil Mack's name that much. And then that in turn said, you haven't heard Cam Robinson's name that much. You haven't heard Jawan Taylor's name that much. So Trevor Lawrence is being protected, and he's having time to throw the ball. And then in that first rookie season, you saw Trevor Lawrence lead the NFL in interceptions. He was making bad decisions. He was forcing plays. At times, he just didn't look comfortable. Right now, especially last week, he had a 72% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, that's a perfect recipe for success if you want to win football games. This season, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception total. That 1 interception came in the last minutes of the game against Washington. So Trevor Lawrence just looks a whole lot more comfortable. He's protected, and he's making the smart throws to his new receivers and Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and an old friend in Marvin Jones. So it's been fun to watch Trevor Lawrence play. He's making the smart moves, and he's just doing everything right. And it seems like the scheme of Press Taylor has made him seem comfortable in Jacksonville.
I think having a good familiarity with your receivers and your coaching staff is very important, especially for a young quarterback. Getting that in just year number 2 is huge. 17 picks as a rookie last year. There was still some promise there, even during his rookie season. And I think one thing that's really benefited him is the run game, right? James Robinson was great on Sunday. He has his former college teammate, Travis Etienne, in the backfield as well. I know there's a little bit of a debate going on here. Do you view this as like a 1 and 1A type of thing? Do you want to see Robinson continue to start? Do you want to see more of Etienne? Where is your head at? Because I know Jaguars fans, at least to me, Vinny, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It seems that the Jaguars fans are very, very mixed on this topic.
Yeah, they are. They're one side or the other. There's no in between. And I have been on the side of James Robinson since the offseason, even after coming off the torn Achilles. And I don't mean to talk about fantasy football in this sense, but there's a lot of buzz in fantasy football for Travis Etienne. And I was like, not so fast. James Robinson is still the number 1 running back on this team. Just because he came off torn Achilles, like that's a very big deal. It's a very serious injury. And we've seen players come back hot or cold from that. And it's unpredictable. But there was one thing in training camp that I noticed that was happening with James Robinson, and it was all the beat reporters and beat writers saying that James Robinson was still going to be the bell cow running back for this team. And Travis Etienne would come in like the Tony Pollard or Kareem Hunt role, that type of role on this team at the third down pass catching plays. And that's, he was just going to spell James Robinson like that. And I am team James Robinson. I think he is the better running back on this team. And it's not to say that Travis Etienne has been bad. That first game was really tough for him. They had a few drops that people were like, oh man, why did we draft him? But he's an explosive running back, Travis Etienne. And when you have 2 running backs like that, it could be a difference maker, especially Trevor Lawrence. Like you said, it helps him and it throws off defenses. You don't become one-dimensional when you have a running game like this. And you don't know if it's going to be James Robinson or Travis Etienne catching passes out of the backfield. You don't know if one of them is going to get the handoff. And then you mix in what Trevor Lawrence is doing. And it's a good recipe for success for the Jacksonville Jaguars here, because it's what you need. It's what you need. And I am for James Robinson. Give him the ball. He is the better running back if I were to choose, but it is a 1A, 1B in Jacksonville.
I like Robinson too. I do also like Etienne. A good pass catcher out of the backfield can change the pace for sure and spell Robinson, but I think Robinson has earned his starting role. So I'm on your side with that one there. Next up, I want to talk to you about the big wide receiver that you signed in free agency this year. Now, I want your initial opinion on this signing when the Jaguars made this move and how you feel about it now, because it seems more often than not, paying receivers this much money in free agency doesn't usually work out. And I could attest for that as a Giants fan with what we're going through right now. But so far, so good for Christian Kirk. What was your initial reaction and what's your reaction now?
Yeah, so initially when the signing came through, I saw the amount of money and I was like, oh boy, I hope this doesn't blow up in our face, because the Jaguars went through a stretch in the offseason where we were very concerned about Trent Baalke being the GM and not moving on from him. So there was obviously concern, and rightfully so, with the Christian Kirk signing because of the dollar amount. But then if you look deeper in, and I believe I might have brought this up the last time I was on the show, we did discuss Christian Kirk, that if you looked at the dollar amount and everything, and you looked at the way it was structured, these teams and these GMs, that's what makes you a good GM, is the way you structure the money and how either top heavy or back heavy it is, or backloaded it is. And that's the way Christian Kirk's contract really is. There's not so much money up front, but later on, if he does well, obviously, and he sticks around, then he's going to be getting paid big time. But if it doesn't work out through the first after 2 years, they can cut him without any problems and not have to worry about a big hit on the cap. But so to answer your question about how I felt about it at first, I was definitely questionable. I was questioning it and worried. But you look at what's happening in Chicago, for example, with Justin Fields. and how this team, how the Bears really did no help for Justin Fields' development, bringing in weapons for him. That's not what the Jags did for Trevor Lawrence. Although it was Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, not flashy names, but it seemed like it was the right names for a Doug Pederson-led offense. So that was huge. And now when you look this year at what Christian Kirk has been able to do, obviously it's fantastic. His contract, I don't care what you're paying him if he's going to be able to produce and help Trevor Lawrence like this. But what you're seeing from him, and I don't want people to rip me for this, but what you're seeing from him is very similar usage to what you're seeing from the Rams and Cooper Kupp. Christian Kirk right now leads the NFL in yards from the slot position. That's what Cooper Kupp made his living on last year as the best wide receiver in the NFL. So with that, you're getting the usage and the effectiveness and the efficiency from the slot position, which is, it's a copycat league. You saw the Rams win a Super Bowl with it last year. That's what Doug Pederson is implementing with Christian Kirk here. Most yards in the league from the slot position, third most in red zone targets in the league for Christian Kirk as well. Like, it's the biggest thing is you want to give your best players the ball when it matters. Third most red zone targets in the league. That for Christian Kirk, like you forget about the money. You forget about the dollar amount when you're talking Christian Kirk now, because he's producing, you're using him in the way you paid him for, and it's helping your franchise quarterback develop into what he was supposed to be.
Bang for your buck, to say the least. I do like that analysis. That was a little bit outside the box, and by no means are we saying Christian Kirk is Cooper Kupp, but we're saying
not at all.
He's playing a similar role for the Jaguars that Cooper Kupp is for the Rams. I do like that a lot, but I don't mean to digress from this point. I do want to follow up. You mentioned Evan Ingram. Outside of the numbers, how is he doing down there so far?
He's still, that thing, that black cloud always still kind of holds over his head of the drops. And, every time he does something bad, everyone's very quick to jump down his throat. But I think he's been handling everything very well. They like him. They like him here. The Jags like him here. And Doug Pederson uses him in this offense. I don't want to say sparingly, but they use him when he's needed, when he's called upon. And he gives an element that the Jaguars haven't had I can't recall the Jaguars ever having an athletic tight end. Maybe back in the early 2000s they did, but not recently, having a very athletic tight end like Evan Ingram is. And although the drop issues are there, and I'm sure you and Giants fans will be glad to bring that up, he has been consistent with his play, not relied upon heavily. And the fact that when the Giants invested in him, it was very high investment. The Jags didn't invest too high on him, so there's not a whole lot of pressure. He's able to go out there and do what he needs to do to help this team win, and it's been fine so far.
Right, and it's all mental with him. He has the physical traits. It's all mental when it comes to Evan Ingram. So hopefully, he's able to produce at that level that the Jaguars need him to. But switching gears to the other side of the ball here, you invested high in defense in this year's draft and last year's draft. The Jaguars, through 3 weeks, are tied for the fourth best defense in the NFL when it comes to points allowed. Talk about the impact of the young guys like Travon Walker, Devin Lloyd, even Josh Allen, guys who, have kind of really rose to the occasion early on this season. They're, keeping teams out of the red zone, which is a nice sight to see.
Yeah, it's been fun to see this defense start taking shape and start getting molded into what we hope they'd be. Obviously, the high investments in Josh Allen, Devin Lloyd, and Travon Walker. I mean, these are all guys that are from the same. They're almost cut from the same cloth. They're all. I don't like using this word often. It's a very cliche word. It's getting used a lot nowadays. But they're all dogs. They're all very aggressive. They're all hungry players, and they're all high investments. So they're going through the same things. And Devin Lloyd we traded right back into the first round for Devin Lloyd this year. Obviously, the first overall pick in Travon Walker, and then the top 10 pick in Josh Allen a few years ago. They're all cut from the same cloth, and so they're all almost like brothers right now. And you'll see when the Jags, like, they do their mic'd up segments and things like that, they're almost like a family with how they are on the field. And you talk about the impact that they're having. Devin Lloyd right now is second in the league in interceptions. He's 2 interceptions through 3 weeks right now, and it's not really a sustainable number. You're not going to expect Devin Lloyd to get 9 or 5+ interceptions a season. It's been very fortunate bounces for him on those picks, but it's the impact plays that we're seeing from guys like Travon Walker and Devin Lloyd and Josh Allen. Maybe that's not affecting the game in terms of turnovers, but the Josh Allen and Travon Walker are getting to the quarterback. They're making especially Justin Herbert last week, they're making him feel the pressure. They're in his face, and eventually they're going to start getting double teamed, and you're going to double team Travon Walker and leave Josh Allen open, or vice versa. And it's going to become a problem more so for offensive lines. And that's exactly what you want to see from the Jags. And right now, something that the Jags defense it's been fantastic to see after the past few years. Jaguars in 2020 and 2021, those 2 seasons, 22nd and 30th in rushing yards allowed per game. Right now, they're first in the league in terms of rushing yards per game allowed, as in not allowing rushing yards and teams to run all over them. That's huge, because not just because like the running backs to run all over them, but it comes down to tackling. And one thing from this Jaguars team in the past few years has been not being hungry enough to stay on tackles. There's a lot of broken tackles. We know all the videos of Derrick Henry running for 90 yards because he's just destroying tacklers. It's not like that anymore with this team, at least through 3 weeks. I shouldn't say it's not going to, that won't happen later on, because anything's possible with the Jaguars. But right now, they're not getting ran all over. The rookies are stepping up and making plays, and they're hungry to make plays. You're not seeing any laziness from this team, and I'm excited. As you can tell, I'm very excited for this defense.
Yeah, and I also like Chad Muma as well. Good young rookie linebacker at Wyoming.
I was so afraid of that draft. Well, we did our live coverage of the draft, and we were live for that pick, and Nakobe Dean was still on the board. And I thought I was much higher on Nakobe Dean than Chad Muma, and my co-host was very high on Muma, and he was telling me to relax, go watch up and study up on Chad Muma. And I was like, okay, it fits what Doug Pederson's trying to do in Jacksonville, and just trying to build a team that's just consistent and tackles and plays hard. And that's what they've needed for a very long time.
Speaking of Doug Pederson, first year as the head coach, a huge upgrade over what he has had last year. Pederson, he's won a Super Bowl. He's handled this young roster relatively well, in my opinion. What's impressed you from him so far within 3 weeks? Because obviously the ending in Philadelphia wasn't good at all, especially on a national stage. So for him to come here and start 2-1, it definitely speaks volumes, not to just his short memory, but I think the fact that this young team has seemed to just have bought into him.
Yeah, it's a different culture. Like you said in the beginning of the segment, it's a different culture here in Jacksonville, and that is in large part of how respected Doug Pederson is in this league as a head coach. Obviously, a Super Bowl winner. It's not something that the Jaguars have. I mean, Tom Coughlin came in here a few years ago in 2017, changed the culture because he was well respected. Obviously, it ran its course because of how he was as a. A lot of things happen with Tom Coughlin, but it's a similar situation where you're now bringing in a very well-respected head coach that you can say, okay, we trust you. You've done this before, and we trust, and we're going to put our faith in you this season. And that's what it is from the young players. It's he has your trust early on, and you're seeing it this year with, the staff that he's built, especially I mentioned Press Taylor earlier on the offensive side. The offense here for the Jaguars under Doug Pederson and Press Taylor has been something that, again, I compare things to the past few years for this Jaguars team, 31st in the league last year and in 2020 in terms of time of possession. Lots of 3-and-outs, giving the ball up, making your defense stay on the field, getting them tired, and just basically draining them. And that's no way to win football games. This year, they're second in the NFL in terms of time of possession. They're controlling the ball. They're giving Trevor Lawrence more time to get into a rhythm on offense instead of 3-and-outs, better play calling, making sure things are not 3rd and 15, much like instead of a 3rd and 4, making these more manageable third downs, and then in turn, making your defense not extremely tired and worn out and getting them gassed. So it's the play calling and then the respect that Doug Pederson has in this league that has really turned this culture around in Jacksonville, and it's especially helped with the young talents of guys like Trevor Lawrence and the rookie defenders that we had just talked about.
You talk about time of possession. 38 minutes against the Chargers. That's huge on the road as well.
Yep.
So very impressive start for Doug Pederson. And, you look at the other teams in this division. So you beat the Colts and you beat the Jaguars, right? Not the Jaguars, the Chargers.
Yep.
Where does this team stack up in the AFC South, in your opinion, 3 weeks in? Because obviously, I didn't have the Jaguars really winning this division. I felt like out of any team in that division, they would take the biggest step forward this year, but I didn't see a blowout against the Chargers coming, regardless of who's out. I don't care if Keenan Allen's out or, Justin Herbert has broken. I mean, look, they still won the game and they dominated. The Chargers weren't even in this game. So Talk to me, Vinny. What's their chance right now in the AFC South? Do you believe in this team?
Yeah, I do. I do believe in this team to make it competitive towards the end and be right in there in the thick of this of the AFC South race. I'm not very high, and if I'm not sure if anyone has seen what I've been saying on my show, I have the Tennessee Titans going 6-11 this season. That was my initial record prediction for the Tennessee Titans. I thought that they were going to take a massive step back this year, and they've been taking a more massive step back than I thought, which is allowing the Jacksonville Jaguars to jump right in. And obviously the play of the Jags is helping that out as well. But I think it's going to be a two-team race between the Jaguars and the Colts. I think the Tennessee Titans continue to fall off, but I know the Colts started off really slow. Obviously the Jags shut them out 24-0 in week 2. But it's seeming like this Colts team needs to be getting into a rhythm, or needs to find that rhythm. It's similar to what we're seeing in Denver with that offense, with Russell Wilson now coming in. I see similarities with Indianapolis and Matt Ryan trying to figure out and get into a rhythm with Frank Reich's offense. And I do see them figuring it out later on in the season. They obviously just beat the Chiefs, but that was more self-inflicted by the Chiefs than a Colts win. But I think it's going to be tight between the Jaguars and the Colts, and maybe the Titans figure it out. I'll give credit to Mike Vrabel because he's a very good coach. And I think, but I do think the Jaguars have a good chance to win this AFC South. I think it's wide open, like you said at the beginning of this.
Yeah, so I actually made a statement earlier this week. I think the Jaguars are winning the AFC South, in my opinion. I'm very high on this team. It's not like years past. I think Pederson is. Again, you can talk about what you want, what happened in Philly. I like Pederson more than Reich, in my opinion, as a head coach. So it's going to be interesting now because they have Philly on Sunday, on the road, right down the turnpike. Week 4, Jaguars 2-1, Eagles 3-0. Eagles favored by 6.5 the last I checked. Yeah. How do you see this game going, and what's the key to Jacksonville if they want to pull this upset off?
Yeah, so we talked about it just a few moments ago with time of possession, and the Jaguars have to control the game. That's kind of the biggest thing that I see that the Jaguars need to do right up front. They need to control this game. They need to keep – and that's why I think they really won against the Chargers. You take the ball out of the best player's hands when you control it on offense, and Jalen Hurts is arguably one of the best players in the league. As of right now, he's been very good, I should say. He's been very good. That offense is getting better and better now that they involved Devontae Smith in last game. We've already got A.J. Brown, and the rushing attack is great as a group, a committee there with Jalen Hurts running it, Miles Sanders, throwing in Kenneth Gainwell, and of course, Boston Scott. But you have, for the Jaguars to win this game, the key will be controlling the game, taking the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands. And it's funny because I like all the two things that I brought up today of the Jaguars being the best in the league or second best in the league against the rush, or being the best in the league against the rush, and the Philadelphia Eagles coming in and being one of the best teams at the rush. Two heads collide right there. It's going to be a true test for this Jaguars team to see if they are legit. And it's stopping the run, and it's controlling the ball and taking it away from Jalen Hurts. No turnovers, because Jalen Hurts is going to make you pay if you turn the ball over. Simple, smart football. It basically everything you saw against the Chargers, you got to do it again this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I don't think the Jaguars don't have a chance in this game. I think I know the Eagles are 6.5-point favorites in this game, but I think it's more as like I think this is a 60-40 it's like a 60-40 thing. I think the Eagles have a 60% chance of winning and the Jaguars have a 40% chance of winning, because always something in the back of my head, and it was the same way in 2017 when they made the playoffs and they went on that magical run. There's something in the back of my head that was always like, when is the shoe going to drop? When are we going to see that setback game where the Jaguars get blown out 42-10, and we're like, come on, well, what do we have? What do we have here? What do we actually have
Waiting
here?
for it.
Yeah, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay. And we make our predictions on this game on Friday, and I've been going back and forth in my head on what I want to pick because that game, this seems like that type of game. But I don't know if Doug Pederson will allow that to happen. So I give the Jaguars a good chance in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very close. At this time, I do have the Eagles with the edge here, but I really hope Jacksonville wins for obvious reasons. And again, like you said, the Eagles have a similar recipe to success. They like to run the football to set up Jalen Hurts, and they like to protect him. And he has receivers that can make plays, right? Because Hurts, I still don't think he's not one of the upper quarterbacks in the league in terms of pass accuracy, in terms of deep pass accuracy, that is. So you want to try to pressure him, get in his face, and make him make decisions quickly. I think that is when he can start to make some mistakes. He's still a young quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. So I think both quarterbacks are in a similar boat here. And I'll be honest, Vinny, I think the pressure is much more on Philly than Jacksonville. If you're Jacksonville, I feel like you come into this game, you give it your all. In Philly, you're expected to win this game.
Yeah.
So I really think Jacksonville has a shot. They might even keep it within a field goal.
Yeah, I think everything the Jaguars did this offseason is for games like this. Everything, all the adjustments that they made in the offseason, especially on that defensive side of the ball, is primed for this game right here. Stopping the run, being able to tackle, being able to make plays. That's what it comes down to in this game against Philly. I would love to see it within a field goal. That'd be fantastic for me. And I think that the Jaguars can definitely do it. And like I said, I don't know if Doug Pederson's going to just lie down easily for this. And we've seen the Eagles have great first halves. They've been having phenomenal first halves, and then nothing in the second half. We saw it in the Lions game. We saw it in the Vikings game. That's what has been the way the Eagles have been going. So if the Jaguars can just keep the Eagles down in the first half, I think that they're going to have a good chance to win this game.
Even against Washington, all 24 of Philly's points were scored in that second quarter, And I think my three key players to watch in this game are Ben Barch, Luke Fortner, and Brandon Scherf, because you're going up against Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. If they do some stunt moves, they do some twists inside on you. Even Brandon Graham, they like to do that. They love to do that, actually. So I think that's going to be key. Keeping the interior trenches safe for Trevor Lawrence so that he has time to make decisions, because I think that's where the pressure is most likely to come from. So
I'd like to see Trevor Lawrence improvise more. That's one thing we have not seen a whole lot of. Like obviously in the last week's game against the Chargers, there were not a whole lot of opportunities for him to have to roll out of the pocket and figure out and find some open men or run the ball. And Trevor Lawrence can run the ball. He did it at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
He was not a flat-footed or just a statue of a quarterback. He's a mobile guy. He can make plays with his legs. I think this is the game where, like you said, it's going to be tough for the offensive line for the Jags. And I do see at least two sacks in this game from the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's a game I want to see Trevor Lawrence make some plays with his legs, whether it be rolling out of the pocket and finding a receiver or a tight end, or rolling out of the pocket and picking up a few yards instead of taking minus plays or taking an incomplete pass. Like, I want to see that from Trevor Lawrence in this game especially.
Right, and I think it works to your advantage that he's somewhat mobile, because Carson Wentz is a statue, and we saw 9 sacks on him Sunday. So I think that's going to wrap up this segment, unless anything you wanted to add here on Jacksonville.
I think I'm good. I appreciate you having me, man. I love talking the Jags, and I love being on here. So this is the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. And if you can plug the Sac City podcast and where people can find you and your work.
Yeah, so I am the host of the Sac City podcast. It is a all football show where we cover all 32 teams in the NFL. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, wait, I want to know about my team and not all 32 teams. Well, the way we have our show set up nowadays is perfect for the fan of whatever team that you like, whether you're a Giants fan, a Jags fan, or even a Commanders fan or an Eagles fan, whatever team you like. We make our videos now on YouTube. We go live we're live 6 days a week
Every
now,
day. These guys are live every day.
Yeah, we're live 6 days a week at 10 a.m. Eastern time on YouTube at the Sac City Pod. But after our live shows, which are about an hour long, we're like, okay, let's make this special for each individual fan base. So after our shows are done, you can head on over to our YouTube page at Sac City Pod and find all of our game previews and game recaps clipped individually for that fan. And we make sure that we give ample amount of time for every single fan base to be able to hear what they want and what they need to hear of their fan base. So we are at the Sac City Pod on YouTube, especially. We are on social media, all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We are there at the Sac City Pod as well. Very easy to find. All you have to type in is those words, and that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Vinny, I know I always try to check out your stuff in the mornings. Even sometimes when I start work at 8 a.m., I try to pop in for like 2 or 3 minutes and see you guys. These guys are live every morning. So they do a lot of hard work, and they're awesome people as well. They've had me on do some draft prediction stuff for them. So, but Vinny, really appreciate you and your time. I hope your Jaguars pull it out on Sunday. And I'll have to catch up with you soon on that, and I'll have to have you back on again sometimes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man, for sure. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely, Vinny. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Awesome.